Hey guys, welcome to another week at the webinar. I'm Shamisha, and today we're going to be talking about money. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but guys, it's tax season, so you got to kind of get it together. And we have a special guest, Keina Newell, today, who is going to be talking about money. And that's one of her favorite things, is to make people have those conversations. But if you're in the chat, let's go ahead. I want to hear where people are tuning in from, because money is spent around the world. So I'm sure there's people from all over the place. And some things to think about while we get people going is, what are some of your biggest struggles with money? I know me. I just like to spend it. But do you have a budget? I know that's a big thing with a lot of people. They don't even know where to start when it comes with the budget. Retirement. I know that's a big talk. Are you putting money into retirement? Do you even know where to start? Do you do a 401k? Do you do a Roth IRA? Do you even know what those terms mean? And then if you can ask one question about money, what would it be? I know my husband's a saver. I'm a spender. So my question's always like, what's in the budget? What can I spend? All right, here we go. We got people from San Diego. Of course, we have Arizona representing in the chat today. Cleveland. I know we have people, our speaker is from DC, so she's all the way on the other side of the country from us. We have Michigan in the house. I know you got a lot of snow, so hopefully your Wi-Fi keeps up with that. We have Atlanta in the building. Yes. All right. Having a budget and spending money, I mean, that's probably what people's most question is today, is how much money can I put in my budget to be able to just spend freely? All right, guys, keep asking those questions about money, because at the end, we will do a Q&A with Keina, and she'll answer some questions live that you have. So be sure to put them in the chat. And if we don't get to them today, you always feel free to reach out to her. But let's do a quick introduction before we bring her on. Keina is the founder of Wealth Over Now, and she is a financial coach. She loves to create clear financial goals for people so that they can save more, pay off debt, and stress less. Who wants less stress? I know I do. And not only does she want to see you succeed, but she wants you to go to your personal circle, talk to other people about how you succeeded so that you can see your circle of influence succeed as well. A little bit more, she's from Oklahoma. She currently resides in the DC area. She just walked away from her job at teaching. So guys, she's still a teacher, so make sure you have your pens, your paper out, and take notes. She loves coffee, specifically French press in the morning. She loves CrossFit, boxing. She loves to travel, and of course, like many of us, she loves to spend money, but she does it well. So guys, I am so excited to have Keina on today. Listen up and be sure to ask those questions. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Awesome, let's do this.
Okay. So Shamisha said something about tax season, so we need to get it together. And what I want you to come away from this time today is that you don't need to get it together. You can stay together. So that way, when numbers or money is brought up, it's not the thing that is causing you stress. You've been in business for yourself, or you've gone into business for yourself. You're thinking about going into business for yourself. And we want, everyone desires this sense of freedom and flexibility. And so as a business owner, you need to know your numbers. One of my greatest reflections is realizing that, when you're in business for yourself, a dollar is not a dollar. If you make a dollar, if you are really great and you are profitable, then 50 cents of that is yours. But just because you are earning income in your business doesn't mean that you actually are able to pay yourself consistently, or that you're paying your taxes on time, or it's not the part of your business that you signed up to do because you had some other creative bone in your body that you actually wanted to lean into. But I would say that as a business owner, it's important for you to wear this like CEO, CFO hat so that you know where your numbers are going so you can create a life that you are excited about. So some of the struggles that you may be familiar with in terms of challenges are like you are currently making money in your business, but you aren't able to pay yourself consistently. You want to invest in your own development in your business, and like you're looking at building a team, but you can't actually figure out how you can afford this as a business owner. You're like now responsible for paying your taxes, and you haven't developed a system to prepare. Yours is just like rooted in prayer, or you close your eyes and cross your fingers and hope it works. Or you're like just not able to deal with like fluctuating income in your business. So you may have a 10K month, the next K month it's 2K, and you don't know like how am I supposed to sustain a business like when my revenue fluctuates from month to month. So the goals of like what I want you to hear is that what you actually need in your life is financial clarity. You need a financial plan, and you can have a bookkeeper, you can have an accountant, and you can still feel like you struggle with your finances. So you want to be able to think about like, I actually want to build on the support of the numbers team I have in place. Maybe you don't have a numbers team in place and you still desire to build and support the things that you do know about your numbers, because it can be true that you have an accountant and you have a bookkeeper and you still feel like you don't know what's going on with your numbers because your head is in the sand. And so what I want to help you think through today, I'm a financial coach, which is different than a financial advisor. I want to help you think through like a system that allows you to think about like, how can I be intentional with my business finances and not operate what I call is bank account budgeting, where you look at your bank account, you say, I have $2,000 in it. Here's the thing that I want to buy. It's only $1,500. And so you say yes without ever thinking about like, what needs to happen next week, what needs to happen 6 months from now, because you don't really have a system within your account or a system within your business. So in order to get the most out of our time together, I would tell you to like have accessible like a pen, a sheet of paper. If you even want to have in another window, like your bank account open, I am going to like dedicate, it won't be a long time of awkward silence, but a time for you to even just open up your account and say, okay, what do I actually want to look at? And then I would invite you at different points throughout this conversation to also put like calendar times or times on your calendar to do some more of the work. With February 14th just like passing and Valentine's Day, I like to say that like you are in a relationship with your money. So if you and your money went to a therapist, like what would your money actually tell the therapist? And hopefully, like what I want your bank account to tell your therapist is like, you know, we have great quality time. It's so amazing. And some of us, like our bank accounts would, they would throw us under the bus, right? Like that's not actually what you're doing, is making sure that you're having quality time with your bank account and with your numbers. And so that's why I would ask you to make calendar commitments. And it doesn't have to be long calendar commitments, but like setting aside 10, 15, 20 minutes every single week to tackle something that you desire to learn more about, or that you want to be more intentional about with your finances, so that way this becomes the way that you live, the way that you think, and just becomes a part of your lifestyle. So if you are listening today and you are someone who gets really stressed by numbers, when I am working with clients, I want clients to know that like 10% of the work that I do is like actually grounded and based in the tools, but money is emotional. Like it is what it is. And so when you find yourself, whether it's like in this presentation or someday this week, and you think like, oh my goodness, this is just like too much, I want to offer you 2 thoughts that you can practice. You can post somewhere in your house. You can develop more of your own thoughts as well. But just know that like managing my finances brings me peace. And that's ultimately what we want. We don't want to be in a place where we're stressed out about like what our numbers are because we don't have any idea. And so also another thought that you can adopt is like I create clarity through actions. And so being able to dive into some of the things that I'm going to ask you to do today, it's going to create clarity for you. And when you are creating clarity for yourself, you're going to be also able to create a different set of results for yourself. So I'm going to ask you today to take 4 intentional actions. The first action that I'm going to ask you to take is to open up an account for your operating expenses. So right now, hopefully, if you are doing business for yourself, you already have a separate personal and business account. If you do not, I need you to go to step 0, which is not step 1, and I need you to open up a business account that is just for your business finances. I need you to have a personal account as well, because those two things should not be commingled. If you only have one business account, like a lot of my clients do, when you have this one business account, that business account is for everything. It's for your expenses. If you can't afford to pay yourself, you're paying yourself. If you have taxes due, taxes come out of that account. If you have some level of business savings, the business savings are in that account as well. And so, as a part of my system for creating greater clarity with your finances, I'm asking you to open up an account that you just use for your operating expenses. So, when I talk about operating expenses, I am talking about the money that you use to pay the bills within your business, the money that you use to pay for, an attorney when you need the attorney to look at your contracts, the money that you would use for your Dubsado membership, for your Show It membership, like your annual or monthly membership every single year. Like, that's what this operating account will be for. And it's going to help you have clarity in thinking about like how much money can I actually afford to be spending on different expenses within my business. So when you think about this, other accounts that we can also open in our business, we're not going to talk about those today, is like we could also have an account for savings, we can have an account for taxes, and we could have an account for owner's compensation, or the amount of money that you are going to be paying yourself each month. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do for yourself, when I talked about like time blocking or actually inviting yourself in terms of like a block of time on your calendar to do this work, is put a time on your calendar when you're actually going to call your bank and open up that account. For some of us, it's as easy as going online. For others, it might be like you actually have to take a little bit more time where you actually need to call into the bank. But find a time. Today is Tuesday. Before the end of this month, like find a time before the end of February and the beginning of March to open up an account that you can use for your operating expenses. One of the things I always like to encourage as well here is that when I'm working with clients or just talking to people in general, ask the question too, is like, if you're going to be charged an additional fee to have this account. Some of the major banks, they charge monthly fees, and I do not believe in banking at a bank that charges me to house my money that I'm allowing you to borrow, that allows you to do things within your business. So just be really clear for yourself, and ask that question of whether or not they're going to charge you like a $5, $10, sometimes even $15 if you don't have like a certain minimum in this account. So I don't want you to open this account and then you end up paying, $180 a year having the account open because you're paying $15 a month. I would suggest that you go to a different bank that didn't have the fees if that were the case. So intentional act 1 is for you to open up that operating expenses account. So your intentional act, or step 2, is going to be to get clear on your monthly expenses. So if we're talking about like personal finances, you've heard of budgeting or having a spending plan. And I want the same to be true for you in your business. Like, your expenses and the things that you do in your business, they aren't things that just have to happen to you. You can actually create greater clarity for what you are spending your money on, even if you feel like some things are sporadic or they're irregular. In order to gain that clarity with your expenses, what I want you to do is I want you to write down a list of your annual expenses. So like I reference Show It. So for instance, I use Show It for my website. They host my website. I pay that annually. So that's actually an expense that I would write here. I pay Acuity annually for my scheduling. I have Dubsado. That's something else that I pay for annually. So those are the things that I would write down in that list of like my annual expenses. And then I want you to write down a list of your regular expenses. So you could be thinking about people that are your contractors, or maybe it's like things are slipping. Like I send packages to my clients, for instance, every single month. So like I have a line in my spending that's in regards to me like being able to pay for postage. And then also thinking about irregular expenses that you have. So in DC, I actually have to make sure like my business entity is like registered, and I think that happens every 2 years. So that's something that I would consider in that bucket. Or a regular could also be, not right now so much because we're in a pandemic, but in the past I would include like traveling in this conference fees, or like having money for when I do travel for meals. That would be included in my irregular expenses. And then also being clear on like investments that you actually want to make for the year. So this is an example of like what a potential list for yourself may look like. I don't know, Shamisha, if you guys shared or not, but I do have a link to like a spreadsheet, a Google sheet that is a spending plan that has like some different categories. So you could download this sheet if you don't have access to it right now. But after we get off this call, and really think through like what are your expenses, so you actually have them laid out and you're not just listening to me talk to you and not having time to actually process in regards to what your expenses are in your account. So what I'm going to do right now is actually give you like 5 minutes to think about, like, just take a stab and think about what are the expenses that you would want to account for in your business. And I would also encourage you to use real numbers. So that's why I ask you if you need to pull up your account or you need to log into something. Even if you just have a sheet of paper in front of you, you could put it into 4 sections and just like, what are some things that are coming to mind? Even if you haven't taken the time, I would even say to think about like, what are the investments you want to make in your business this year that you haven't necessarily taken the time to plan for financially. So this was just a brief amount of time for you to get started on thinking about like some of your numbers. What do you pay annually, regularly? What's irregular? What are some of your investments? Once again, I'm inviting you to like block out time to either like revisit if you actually have a budget or a spending plan in your business, or to start creating one. So you can actually sit down and think about like, where are you spending your money month to month within your business and week to week. So if this were my list of expenses, and once again, I provided a sheet that like breaks this down a little bit easier. So this is more so thinking about like if you were doing it by hand. But in your annual expenses, the way that I want you to think about annual expenses is like if you paid $150 per year for your website host, what I want you to be thinking about is that I want to set aside $1,250 per month, because when it's due annually again, if it's due every single August, if you were saving $1,250 a month from August to August, when that bill becomes due, you'll already have that money set aside. It won't be something that seemingly catches you off guard, or you feel like, oh my goodness, my expenses are so high this month because my website host, like I have to pay for that. Similarly, with your regular or your monthly expenses, you're going to go ahead and break it down by month. Like, you have a VA, you have some independent contractors, maybe you spend a certain amount of money on client gifts, and that's something that you do regularly. You also want to think about like your irregular expenses, things like, maybe you use a graphic design artist in your business once every quarter because you want to get some assets done. So think about like how much does that cost quarterly, and being able to then divide that expense. Like if it costs $800 a year, then that means that I would set aside $67 a month. So that way, when I want to engage in that graphic design work, I already have the money set aside. I have a budget for it. And similarly with the investments that you are thinking about, like if you are thinking about investments within your business, there's a mastermind you want to do and it's $5,000. You want to do that at the end of the year. Well, that looks like you setting aside $417 every single month, so that way, when it's time to do that mastermind, you have either the full amount of that money or you're very close to the amount that you need within your business. Like if it's 3 months away and it's $5,000, that may look a little bit different, but the whole premise here is to be intentional with how and where your money is going, how you're spending your money and where your money is going within your business. So when you use my sheet, or if you're doing this on a sheet of paper, when you add up all of your numbers, like you're going to have a number that shows you like this is what you're spending on the amount that you desire to spend in your business each month. So that may be a number that you agree with. It may be a number that you don't agree with, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But what I want to bring attention to right now is for you just to know that number, because we're not just planning for the things that you spend money on for this month, but we're really thinking strategically throughout the year and how you desire to spend money. So step number 3, and where I want you to be intentional, now that you have a list of your expenses, you're going to go back and do what I call a keep, revisit, or cancel audit. So you would go beside every expense and you would get clear on, do I desire to keep this expense? Do I want to revisit this expense, or do I want to cancel this expense? And that's just a matter of, there are times in our business where we're spending money on something that we maybe didn't even recognize that we were still paying for, because we signed up for the $9 Canva subscription and we don't even use Canva anymore, right? Or I feel like every subscription in business is like $9.99. And so a lot of $9.99s add up. So this gives you an opportunity to look at things holistically, or see if you have things that are serving the same purpose that you desire to cancel. And then maybe there's some things that you're like, I actually want to revisit this to see if I'm getting the most out of this expense that I have within my business. So a couple questions that you can ask yourself is, does this expense or investment serve my business goals? Will this expense or investment make it easier to spend more time generating income? If I invest in this expense or investment, how will that impact where I need to be a month from now, 2 months from now, or when I know I'll have less inconsistent income? So after you've gone through your like keep, revisit, and cancel steps, you'll want to go and like recalculate your monthly expense number. The goal is that we want to have a profitable business. And so it starts with being able to look at our expenses and knowing how much money we're actually bringing in per month, which is going to lead into the next step. So in the last intentional step, the thing that I want you to do is to determine what percentage of your monthly income is used for expenses. So if you know that, and I'm going to speak in terms of average monthly income, because I think that it's nice to kind of know your trends, because income in your business will fluctuate. You could gain a client, lose a client, whatever that looks like. Someone signed up for a membership, you've lost people in your membership. And so when you're able to kind of look on average what's happening, whether it be the last 6 months or you're looking at the last 12 months, that's how I'm talking about expenses here, or not expenses, monthly income. So when I want to know the percentage of my monthly income used for expenses, what I'm going to do is take my monthly expense number. So in this case, I'm using the number 2,200, and I'm going to say that my average monthly income here is $5,000. So if I divide 2,200 divided by 5,000 times 100, 44% of my income is being spent on expenses. And when I think about 44% of my income being spent on expenses, that means that I have 56% left that would be able to go towards paying myself, saving for things within my business, paying taxes, and like depending on where you are within your business, you need to be saving anywhere from like 20 to 30% for taxes. So for those of you who are like, hey, where's my money going? This could be where it's going, is that it's all being used for expenses. And that's why you're unable to pay yourself consistently, or why, you know, saving for taxes doesn't seem like something that you're able to do. So this like percentage is also going to help you think about like, where do you stand in terms of profitability? So if you get here and you realize that you are at 44%, my suggestion for you is that you want to be at like 30% or lower in terms of your expenses. If you know in your business, like maybe you're like, I can get to 40%. Thinking about, before you take on new expenses, are there things that you can go through and you can keep revisit and cancel from 1 month to the next, or from 1 quarter to the next? Like, this is just your starting point, and this is you bringing awareness to how you're spending money within your business. So as I said, you can go back to step number 3, which is to go back through that keep, revisit, and cancel process so that your expenses get closer to a percent that you're comfortable with, and you feel like, for lack of a better word, that you're not bleeding money out of your business because you don't actually understand where your money is going, or you don't desire for 50 or 60% of your month-to-month income to be spent on expenses going out. I also feel like I talked really, really fast to go through all 4 of those steps. But that's a starting place for you to start thinking about how you desire to gain clarity and control of your finances. That will also lead you to the place where you can now start thinking about, how much do I want to be paying myself? How much do I want to save within my business? And how much do I want to, not even how much I want to be setting aside for taxes, but being able to create that space to set aside money for taxes. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat.
All right. Well, we do have a few questions from some, let's see. We have a Kristen Pruis. She's from Indiana. And one of her main questions in the beginning was, how do you make a realistic budget and not just arbitrary guesses when your revenue fluctuates? I know you had just talked about doing averages. Is there anything beyond like the averages if it seems like it's a drastic fluctuation all the time?
So I mean, like, the thing that I love to that I would encourage you to do is look at, like, if you have QuickBooks, you can look in QuickBooks. If you want to open up an Excel document, really looking at like, if you looked at your income from January 2020 to December 2020, what are you averaging per month? Because when you are actually looking at your average, I think it allows you to create a realistic budget per se, because the way averages work, if you have a 10K month and a 2K month and an 8K month, when you have months where you have higher income, you're going to learn to save that money because it's like it's an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were thinking about in math terms, and so you're going to be able to find, oh, okay, well, I'm actually averaging, on average, I make about 5K a month. So you're going to make decisions based on a business owner that brings in an average of 5K per month.
Okay.
So then you can start to think, if I want to spend 30% of my business revenue on expenses, what's 30% of $5,000? And then that should be how you're budgeting within your business.
Okay. That makes sense. Kristen, hopefully that answered your question. If not, feel free to reach out to Keina. Okay, another question. How much time should we be spending with our money each week? You said make those dates, date your money. And like initially when you're first starting to set this up, how much time should we be spending? And then on a weekly consistent basis, what does that look like on a time schedule?
I mean, I would commit to like 30 to 60 minutes a week
Okay.
that you could use. Like, I mean, if you guys are, depending on if you have a bookkeeper or not, like I do my own books. And so every single Friday, I just call it a financial Friday and I spend 60 minutes, whether it's working on my budget or doing bookkeeping stuff or other numbers, things that I need to do in my business. Like it could be following up on an invoice or whatever that looks like for myself or sending out new invoices. So I definitely would encourage people to at least, um, I would say 60 minutes is a good number. If you're like Keina, nobody has an hour. Start with 30 minutes, but it's about building the habit because it gets easier from week to week.
Okay, awesome. All right, we have another question in the chat. It's from Sana. The money that we set aside for taxes or business savings, should it be kept in a different account or just maintained as a digital envelope?
If you want to maintain it as a digital envelope, you can. I think it's up to you in terms of like, what do you know about you and your spending habits? I personally keep mine in separate accounts. So I have an account for savings and I have an account for taxes because it gives me a very, like in my business, I like to just kind of be able to look and see like a quick number.
Okay.
And so I have like separate accounts.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Sana, hopefully that answered your question. We have another question. Her name's Arlene Jacobs. She says, my bank charges me let me start over. My bank charges me a monthly fee. What bank would you recommend that doesn't charge for business accounts?
I know a few of my clients use Chase, and I can't remember. I do think that they have a minimum, but I would look into Chase potentially. I know Bank of America has some fees that they associate, which is not friendly. Oftentimes, if you like don't have minimums in your accounts or certain minimums, if you're not opposed to reaching out to your bank, I would also call, like depending on the number of years you've had a relationship with them, I would ask them to like waive the fee. I'm also a big fan of credit unions because credit unions generally don't have additional fees. So looking into a credit union that supports business checking. So like for me, actually, all of my business accounts are Navy Federal Credit Union. So there's no additional fees.
Sweet. Awesome. Quick question to piggyback off that question. I just totally blanked on my question. That's all right. I got another one. When you talk about keep, revisit, or cancel, now you had mentioned, do you do that weekly, monthly, quarterly, or just, I know you talk about building habit. Is it something where you should do it more consistently in the beginning? Or is it something where you should just continue to do it quarterly or whenever you look over your finances?
Yeah. So I use that in the beginning because business owners usually tell me that they have to have all their expenses because they're all important.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, great. Do this exercise, right? So you actually take the time to like go through an audit. I would say if you were building it in as a habit, like if you do that quarterly, that's a really healthy habit within your business just to see like what's happening and like what are you adding on. Because I think there's a couple. I mean, quarterly, I'm also looking at like, okay, how did I do in my business in terms of Kristen asked about like a realistic budget for
Mm-hmm.
fluctuating income,
Mm-hmm.
is I also want to know is like my average income, am I still kind of hitting that average number?
Okay.
Because like if my average income was $5,000, like I still want to make sure every quarter or every single month that that's kind of like where I'm in alignment with. So I think building in a habit to keep, revisit, cancel, like go through that process is useful. And as you start to like gain momentum with managing your finances as a business owner, you will also like naturally build in that habit. Like you'll be like, oh, I don't even need this anymore.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. I remembered my bank question. Now, does it specifically have to be a business account, or can it be another personal checkings account that's just separate that you run as your business account?
I feel like that's an accounting question, a fine line. The accountant that I work with would tell you like if that's all you could do for now, go ahead and do it that way. But also your business accounts are generally tied to like your EIN number that you're operating.
Yeah.
So I think if you're like doing your side hustle and you were like, Keina, I haven't established certain things yet, even if you could do that,
Yeah.
first step, I think that's a great first step. But
Okay.
I would encourage you to open up a business account so everything is in one place. Because here's the other thing that I don't think we think about is like, what are the long term implications?
Mm-hmm.
So, as a business owner, 2 years, 3 years down the line, next year you want to buy a home, you have to verify that you have this business income, right?
Mm.
And so, thinking about being able to pull those documents and having them like readily available, because people aren't loaning you money if they don't really care if you go to them. You're like, I make six figures. They like want to see your tax documentation. They want to see all the paperwork.
Yeah.
They don't really care about your celebrations on social media that say you make six figures.
Yeah.
So the more things that I think you can legitimize on the front end, and when you think about your numbers, also has implications for how you desire to live your life, whether that's, you want to buy a home, you want to refinance your home, you want to buy a car, like those other buckets of things that you desire to do.
All right. Awesome. We have another question. Her name is Tanya. She's from Nova Scotia, Canada. And she says, do you have specific advice for those of us who are in the early stages of starting their business? Like, how do you kind of put a budget in place if they're just starting out?
I think it depends on what your goals are. So when I was just starting out, one of the things that I did was I still had a system where I saved for taxes. I was still saving within my business. I was still saving for business expenses, and I was saving to pay myself based on certain percentages. So you could say like that you were putting 20% away for taxes, 5% for savings. You're going to put 40% away for, or 30% away for expenses, and whatever that other number is, because I haven't been keeping track of the numbers that I've been saying for your owner's pay. I think that what's most important there is that you can still use like a spending plan, but be thinking about if you are bringing in, let's say, $1,000 a month, and you are saying $300 of that goes towards your expenses, it's asking yourself the question of like, where do I desire to spend my money? Is this going to help me move in the direction that I desire to move in? And if let's say you're dipping into the bucket that you would use to pay yourself because you've decided to reinvest in your business, that you're just being mindful of like this. It's about it being an intentional decision, because there's definitely times in my business where I decided that I was going to basically reinvest every dollar, but I knew that, and it wasn't just happening to me.
Awesome. That makes total sense. Hopefully that makes sense for you, Tanya. We have one more question. It's from Meg. She's from San Diego. And she says, what investments do you make in your business every month that you see the best results from?
Coaching, hands down.
There you go, Meg. Hopefully that got to start some coaching. Other than
you don't
that,
have to coaching, but if I think about the thing in my business that's had the greatest return on my investment, it's like when I've hired a business coach.
Okay.
And finding someone who was aligned with what I desired to do in my business versus buying like $99 programs, $199 programs that you think are going to be like the silver bullet. And what I have learned as a business owner is that my business coaching and my business coaches have always had a mindset coaching component.
Okay.
So that's been my greatest investment.
So just making sure that what they teach is in alignment with what your goals are, pretty much, but hiring an actual coach.
Yeah. I mean, that's, yeah. And like making sure that I learned a lot from like people's free content. But yes, I will tell anyone to like hire a business coach, not just any business coach, because they are not all created equal.
Yes.
But but there's a power in coaching and being able to help you get the results that you desire. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I think that's a lot of the questions that we have for right now. Guys, we have a ton of people on the webinar right now, so please reach out to Keina if that you're okay with that, Keina, and ask some questions. Get clarity. This is where it starts with getting your finances in place. But guys, we were super happy to have Keina on today. She has a ton of knowledge. She had mentioned her freebie that she sends out, her worksheet template that helps you with freedom and flexibility. So guys, I put it in the chat. Go ahead and you can get it off there. If not, we will be sending a follow-up email after this webinar and we'll have it in there. And guys, if you couldn't stay for everything today, we will be having this as a replay, so you'll be able to come back, watch, take more notes, and take some time to really get your finances in place. But that's all we have for today, and we are super excited to see you on the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks.